Hi, Mithos here, and welcome to Time Chunk, where I restrict my access to a RuneScape game chunk for 8 hours. If I pass all of its objectives within this time, I unlock the chunk permanently. If I fail, I lose access to it. No time to waste, the clock is running, let's go. Welcome back everyone. In the last episode we had a few unlucky rolls, but did still expand into the desert. Hopefully that means we are going to be more lucky in this episode. This is how the map currently looks like. There are quite a few chunks locked for future rolls. On the positive side, most of the remaining chunks are good for the account. The only chunk I currently want to avoid is chunk 3, since I cannot complete the 90 mining shooting star grind and the chunk itself has nothing to offer. The best chunk is chunk 6, followed by 2, both of which have an anvil that unlocks smithing. Most other chunks are empty or do not have much content. Anyway, time to roll. And the next chunk is Chaltrard Pyramid. One of the empty chunks, though it makes 3 new chunks further into the desert rollable. I briefly went to check it out, but there was indeed nothing noteworthy in the chunk. There was also nothing in adjacent chunks that I could access, and the pyramid itself is locked until Desert Treasure 1 has been completed. Which would take me across half the RuneScape map to complete and is not going to happen anytime soon. Anyway, for now I need to think about what I want to do the next 8 hours for my next roll. And my game plan remains largely the same as in the previous episode. Train my combat skills and mine shooting stars whenever they spawn. So I did exactly that, and there's not too much to report on. One big milestone I finally reached after 4 hours in this chunk was 43 prayer. This unlocks Protect from melee, the last of the 3 protection prayers. I got all the way here only burying regular bones. Quite the achievement, even though I say so myself. Other than that, nothing too interesting happened. Here are my stats at the end of the chunk. Got a couple of defense levels, along with an HP and a prayer level, as well as some mining progress from the shooting stars. And it's map time again. There are a few new chunks rollable, specifically 9, 10 and 11. Chunk 10 triggers the mining grind, but might have good training methods with granite and sandstone. 9 and 11 are both empty. It also makes chunk 12 pretty much useless, as it does not unlock anything anymore. Still hoping to avoid 3 and prefer to roll 2 or 6. The rest is pretty much all okay. Okay, let's roll. And the next chunk is Mithos Desert. It looks completely empty, even as a chunk. Yet there actually is a single task here. Killing a level 31 vulture for the easy achievement diary. So I immediately went to the chunk and killed the vulture and get the task done, which took less than 5 minutes. I also looked around in adjacent chunks, but there was nothing noteworthy I had access to. There was an iron dagger at the ruins of Unka, chunk to the west. I could maybe telegrab it, but I already have several iron daggers anyway. Having Unka as a rollable chunk might be nice, since it unlocks fishing, as it has some fishing equipment spawns. It also has a single tin and copper rock, so whenever I roll it, it also triggers a level 90 mining grind, making it impossible to complete within 8 hours. Anyway, for now, there's nothing to do here, so back to my casual melee training on Alchorite warriors and mining my trusted shooting stars. After around half an hour in the chunk, I got my first evil Bob fish random of the account. For some reason I hoped that if I collected enough small fishing nets that I was able to keep them in my inventory. But of course these just disappeared after completing the event. It did mean I got some nice fishing experience, immediately bringing me from level 1 to level 7 fishing. And since fishing is quite slow at the start, that will save me some time later. At Shooting Stars I see a lot of people with the new cow pet that has been released this week. This might actually also become my first pet, since the quest and boss are only a few chunks away. Though I first need to get out of the desert, which will still take a long time. Other than that, there's also not too much to report on in this chunk, so I'm gonna keep it short. I spent roughly half the time killing Alchorite warriors and the other half mining shooting stars. Here are my stats at the end of the 8 hours. I gained a few defense levels and I'm very close to gaining a mining level. While the experience from stars is not great, it does eventually add up. And back to the chunk map. 2 new chunks are rollable. A very small piece of desert just above Mithos in chunk 9 and the ruins of Unka in chunk 10. The latter does have some content, most notably fishing gear, giving me access to the fishing skill. It also has various mining rocks, including copper and tin, triggering the level 90 mining grind in this chunk. Other than that, nothing changed, so still hoping to avoid 3 and prefer to roll 2 or 6. Time to roll. And the next chunk is Desert Quarry. Okay, another mining chunk, but at least with a different type of rock. So I unfortunately lost the first 30 minutes of footage of this chunk, but these are the chunk tasks. Trust me when I say I managed to find this guy, Lazim, and gave him 32 kilos of sandstone rocks. He gave me a single 32 kilo sandstone block back, which is now sitting in the bank. I need 50 crafting to progress the quest further. In this first half hour, I also went to test my mining experience on granite, of which mining a single one was also the hard diary task. When done correctly with tick manipulation, mining granite is the fastest mining experience in the game. It is also very click intensive and prone to errors. I did try this for a bit, it sometimes worked, but I was not very good at it, so consistency and experience was a lot lower than it could be. So I moved on to sandstone next, while my footage kicks back in. There's 4 sandstone rocks relatively close together, and I can either mine them in 3 or 4 ticks depending on whether I need to walk. I can then deposit the sandstone in the grinder sandstorm close by. I'm not sure if this is going to have any relevant use in the future, but there is not that much time lost, so I might as well do it. The downside of mining here in the desert, of course, is the desert heat. And there is no water source or bank nearby, meaning I had to sacrifice quite some inventory slots for water skins. It also meant I had to walk back to Polnavnich every 45 minutes or so to fill the water skins again. Alternatively, I could cut cacti for small amounts of water, but there were only 3 nearby and I don't have a 100% success rate, so that will be a lot slower. So, the experience for sandstone depends on the weight of the stone obtained, with heavier rocks yielding higher experience. The smallest stone gives 30 XP, whereas the largest stone gives 60 XP. Given that my best method so far in other chunks was iron, with 35 XP each, most of these actually give better experience. However, unlike iron, their success rate is not 100%. The success rate of each rock is dependent on your mining level, meaning that higher mining levels gives you a larger chance for larger rocks and thus more experience. At level 70, mining any type of sandstone has roughly an 80% success rate. Even at level 99, this would almost be 93%, so it never reaches 100%. Not having 100% success rate makes the tick manipulation a bit more difficult, since you should not stay too long at the rocks when failing. I still find the tick manipulation regularly frustrating due to lack of feedback. It is very difficult to determine what exactly went wrong. This makes it more difficult to get better at it, at least that is how I see it. At the same time, this chunk does provide me an opportunity to practice it a bit more, so hopefully I do get somewhat better at it, albeit a bit slowly. Anyway, even with a limited inventory, suboptimal tick manipulation and occasionally needing to get more water, I still got around 35k XP per hour in the long run. This was around the same as mining iron in the desert mining camp, so I was quite happy with that. The rest of the 8 hours in the chunk was literally more of me doing this. I am very proud to say that I did not fletch my log into a crossbow stock a single time in the entire 8 hours. This is the first time in a chunk where I did not mess that up. I did also exceed the 1 million mining XP mark, the first skill where I managed to do so. These are the stats at the end of my chunk. Managed to get to 74 mining, which is around 20% of the level 90 grind. We are getting there, steady but very slowly. And back one final time to the chunk map for this episode. Because we failed the last one, there is only 1 chunk less rollable, the rest remains the same. Still want to avoid 3 and want to roll 2 and especially 6. Maybe if I ask enough times for it, it might actually happen. Let's find out. And the next chunk is Desert Wanderer. Okay, interesting. Well, there is not too much, it might have some useful stuff for us. Let's check it out. There's no tasks here, so we do have the chunk immediately unlocked. There is a single NPC, the Wanderer, to start Iclarin's little helper. I hope I say that correctly. However, without a cat, and thus the quest Gertrude's cat, we cannot start it. I briefly walked around the edges of the chunk, but there is nothing interesting to see there either. Now the main point of interest for me are the 5 gold doors in the northeast. Because there's only gold ores, this does not trigger the level 90 mining grind, as I formally do not have a primary mining training method. This means that these gold rocks are now my only consistent way to train mining permanently. The only other way I could train mining before was with shooting stars. Shooting stars give roughly 10k XP per hour, and with the requirement of level 90 in many chunks around me, this would take over 500 hours. However, I cannot constantly mine shooting stars because I only have one location in Algorithm unlocked. In the past few chunks, I've mined shooting stars around maybe 2 to 3 hours per chunk, so roughly 1/3 of the time. This would mean that the 500 hours of shooting star mining would be 1500 hours of actual gameplay, for me equivalent to the time of 200 chunks. But now, with these gold ores, I'll also have a way to train mining outside the shooting stars, bringing the grind back down. One other big advantage of this mine is that there is also a shooting star spawn here. There are typically less shooting stars tracked near the gold mine, but it still somewhat increases my shooting star opportunities. Anyway, I spent most of the first 2 hours mining shooting stars, as I was lucky enough to find a few after each other. Next, I wanted to know how much XP per hour I could get from mining gold ores. Gold ores give 65 XP each, though I only have around a 20% success rate to mine them, making them quite some worse than iron ores. I messed up twice early on and made crossbow stock from my T-clogs, forcing me to go all the way back to Shantai's Pass for a bank. After that I seemed to get the hang of it, and I spent an hour mining the gold ores. I did need to hop worlds in between, as gold rocks respawn very slowly. I also had to drop the ore, as there's no bank nearby. Overall, I did manage to get a little bit more than 15k XP per hour, which is pretty decent for a permanent mining method. Shooting stars are far more relaxed, but I might mix it up with some gold ores in between. I still really want to unlock Nada though, because then it might also become possible to bank the gold ores. It will probably be a bit slower in terms of XP, but the gold ores might be valuable later on for crafting XP and useful for making jewelry. So even though gold ores are already nice now, they could even be better in the future. For now, I did also want to go back to Algorithm Warriors and finish getting level 60 defense. This took me around an hour or two, and I finally have 60s in all melee stats. I do usually like training my combat stats a few hours here or there in the empty chunks. However, I am starting to wonder whether I should start to fully focus on the mining grind. It seemed like a good way to finish off the chunk though, so I spent the last few hours with a combination of mining gold ore and shooting stars. With gold ores, I decided to hop worlds after every 5 ores, even if the old ones respawned. By doing it that way, I was only on the worlds for such a short time that the desert heat does not yet kick in. It looks like it resets each time I hop. This meant that I did not need to bring many water skins, nor that I had to walk back to Pond of Needs to refresh them. Anyway, these are the stats at the end of my chunk. Managed to get to 75 mining, but each level is over 100k experience now, so those levels are going to become a lot slower. Overall, in this episode, we managed to unlock 3 chunks. Those 3 were pretty much empty, so nothing too special. But we are getting closer and closer to unlock the entire desert, and these new gold ores also improve my mining training method, which is pretty much the biggest threshold to get out of the desert. Time's up. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to stay updated on my progress, like and subscribe. If you have any questions or tips, leave them in the comments below. Have a nice day and see you next time.